In the dead of night, a man vanishes mysteriously, leaving behind only blood and a phone. Meanwhile, the terrified protagonist hides under his bed, haunted by visions of a monstrous hand and strange voices. As reality blurs with horror, a seemingly innocent neighbor girl appears at his door, crying for help. But is she really who she claims to be? With shadows creeping closer and a terrifying transformation unfolding, the protagonist must confront a nightmare that's far from over. A suspenseful horror tale where every knock could be your last. Story starts with a dark room. It was 24 inches. A single light emanated from the monitor, flickering like a dying flame in the pitch black. Aspect ratio of 69, resolution of 1920, the numbers glared back like haunted eyes, hollow and perfect. A window into madness. This was his world, not of blood and flesh, but of pixels and forgotten pain. We see our boy sitting in front of PC looking at random posts, his pupils dilated, his mind drowning. Scroll, click, void. He was completely fallen into the world of distorted desires, a place where broken souls clung to broken fantasies, and he was buried among them. Suddenly, phone rings with message, and he picks it up with dead expressions. The sound pierced the silence like a scream in a crypt, but he moved like a corpse answering a ritual call while he was looking at text. The screen's glow reflected off torn skin and old agony. We can clear see the bruises on his wrist, the culprit of his dead behavior. The silent whispers of his suffering etched like cursed ink on pale flesh. The message was by his mom asking him to join them. Simple words, soaked in naive warmth, reached a heart frozen in rot. But without responding, he threw the phone, cursing the family trip as shh. The device crashed against the wall like shattered trust, his voice venomous and full of decay. His mom was standing outside of room, but he was not ready to go with them. She stood like a ghost outside a locked mausoleum, hope in her breath, silence in her soul. He was not opening door, and she just staring at door sadly. Her fingers trembled, too afraid to knock, too shattered to walk away. She was speechless, had no words. Even her sorrow dared not disturb the choking air between them. Then with disappointment, she whispered, "His son is avoiding her calls and not even coming out his room." Her voice cracked, swallowed by the void of the hallway like a prayer never heard. She tried to tell him that this can be last family trip due to father's business trip, but he yelled saying he'll not join at any cost. His words, sharp and merciless, slit through her last thread of hope. Extending his rudeness, he warned her not to talk with him again. He hated her voice so much. His tone was not anger. It was poison, festering and absolute. Hearing all this, she had no words. She again typed a message to her son with sadness over her body. Her hands moved like fading shadows across the screen, spelling out grief with every tap. His phone rang, but he didn't flinch, focused on the screen. The digital abyss was louder than her dying affection. He was completely into the screen, unaware of her. The blinking notification, a final whisper, lost in digital madness. The phone remained unattended with message notification by mom. A single cry trapped in time, unanswered and unseen. Even after his rude behavior, mom messaged him to take care of himself. Mercy in her heart, even when his soul had turned to rot. The family was driving on their way for trip, a journey of forced smiles, masking cracks too deep to mend. The father was cursing his son for such behavior. His words dripped with scorn, festering the already spoiled air inside the car. Mom and sister was stunned. To worsen their mood, he continued trash talking. Each syllable clawed at old wounds, tearing new ones beneath. Then his glaze felt on mom and started scolding her for raising such mannerless kid. His eyes were daggers. His blame, a relentless storm she had weathered too long. But for her defense, sister tried explaining father that it's not her fault. A flicker of light amidst encroaching darkness, swiftly drowned. Father focused on sister's behavior now, and they kept arguing for a while. Anger passed like a curse, infecting each word with venom. Sister shouted that father don't even visit home, so he don't have right to scold mom. Truth sliced through the car like a scream in a coffin. Dad was so frustrated at his son. Greeting his teeth, he was cursing him. Each word heavier than the last, damning a boy not present to defend himself. To calm them down, mom asked them to stop arguing and focus on family trip. Her voice tried to mend what was already bleeding out. But father was not in such mood and again started scolding mother, counting all her faults. His voice, thunderous and unforgiving, like judgment itself. But in same time, truck was approaching their car. Death rolled quietly forward, unseen and unmerciful. Inside a truck, a man was having nosebleed, his eyes distant, hands trembling. fate guided by chaos. Inside car, Mom starts serving tea to ease the tension. Her hands shook, pouring warmth into cups like a farewell she didn't know she was giving. Accepting her rudeness, Sister apologizes Father. A fragile truce, sealed by tears and exhaustion. Father also accepts her apology and apologizes her back, calling her princess. Looks like everything fine now. For a breath of time, the storm seemed to sleep. But then Sister started screaming, noticing something dangerous. A shriek born not from fear, but from doom itself. Worried, Dad looked at her, shifting his focus, and the truck was right in front of them. His face twisted in horror, a second too late to rewrite fate. Sister pointed towards truck, and Dad was freaked now. Reality shattered in his eyes, silence filled by screeching metal approach. Everyone in car noticed the approaching truck, and they all were into fear. Frozen in that final heartbeat, all masks dropped to raw terror. The bright light flashed, consuming all their fear, and then nothing but white. And next moment, everything was gone. Obliteration. Swift, merciless, final. Scene shifts at home and phone was ringing. In that cursed room, time crawled on, unaware of what had been taken. Protagonist was sleeping and didn't care to pick it up. The dead won't wake for echoes. But surprisingly, he picks up a flicker of instinct, perhaps, and took a look at his phone. The screen shone with names now swallowed by silence. Sensing it was unimportant call, he kept it away without picking up. Ignorance still veiled the horror waiting on the other side. But it again started ringing unstoppably. Urgency pierced through apathy like a dagger through fog. Frustrated, he woke up, cursed at it. The living still cursed what they didn't understand, and then picked up the call, his voice empty, unaware of what he was inviting in. But his expression darkened when someone started inquiring about his family. The words clung to his skin like frostbite, and then his eyes widened in shock. Truth spilled in, a flood of red and sorrow. This person is Cha Hyun-soo, 18 years old high school student, but that title now hung hollow in the stale air. He was failure, left studies and now shocked completely. A corpse, breathing, waiting for one final nail. He dropped the phone after hearing tragic news. The fall echoed louder than any scream. He was completely darkened, hearing he lost all his family, and now he is the only survivor, a boy once dead inside, now truly alone in a world that had swallowed the last of his light. Scene shifts to a few days later. At Green Home Building, someone was mowing the lawn. Footsteps were approaching. It was the protagonist. Suddenly, the lawnmower's blade snapped. It flew straight toward the protagonist. But luck favored him. It struck a tree behind him instead, missing him by inches. He didn't even flinch. The blade was embedded deep into the tree bark. He looked back at the blade, realizing what just happened, and felt oddly fortunate. The security guard who was operating the mower rushed over and apologized for the near disaster. As he spoke to the protagonist, fear trembled in his voice. The fierce, unreadable expression on the protagonist's face was enough to terrify him. They stood outside the building as silence slowly settled between them. As their conversation began, the security guard struggled to catch the protagonist's low, almost inaudible voice. The guard asked why he had come and why he'd never seen him around before. But there was only silence. The protagonist wasn't in the mood to talk. With effort, he tried to speak. But his words dissolved within his mouth before they could be heard. Eventually, he managed to whisper that he had just moved in. The guard recalled that he was the new tenant and asked why he was alone. Again, the protagonist mumbled something, but it went over the guard's head. He finally managed to say that he was alone, an accomplishment in itself. Hearing those words, the guard fell silent, perhaps out of sympathy or fear to press further. The guard wondered why someone his age would leave their family, but quickly changed the subject, asking when his belongings would arrive. The protagonist replied that they would come in the afternoon. The guard told him to meet in the evening for some purpose, and then the protagonist walked away. As the guard watched him leave, he thought of him as an awkward man. Suddenly, his nose began to bleed. He noticed the blood, wiped it in confusion. He stared at the blood curiously. It had never happened before. Inside the building, there were 2 lifts and a narrow corridor. It was room No. 410. The protagonist dropped his bags on the floor and stood there silently staring out the window. The view outside was calm, scattered buildings and distant mountains. His eyes locked on the scene, expressionless. He had lost everything. Then abruptly, he closed the curtains and sat on the floor. There he sat, cursing the situation. His mind drifted to the family's funeral. People were whispering about the family, how successful the father was, how beautiful the mother and daughter were. But when it came to the son, they were dismissive. He hadn't even attended the funeral. Someone said they'd tried calling him multiple times, but he never answered. Everyone was angry at the protagonist. Then, suddenly, he appeared, wearing slippers. People were shocked by both his arrival and his casual attire. He felt awkward as he passed through the crowd. Fury filled the room as people shouted that he finally decided to show up. But he ignored them all, as if walking through an empty hall. People were outraged that he didn't even remove his slippers and headed straight to the bodies, showing blatant disrespect. Then he spoke a single word: "I checked." Everyone was confused by what he meant. He said he hadn't wanted to come, but something didn't sit right with him. Then he pulled out some documents and threw them on the floor. They were 3 bank passbooks, altogether holding just $20,000. Looking at the family photos, he shouted in rage, "How can I live off of this?" Everyone in the room was stunned, including me. Bursting with anger, he screamed, asking how they expected him to survive on such little money. Then he began cursing them. Everyone lost their patience at his outburst. They rushed at him, ready to throw him out. Someone grabbed the hood of his jacket. He was surrounded by the furious crowd. He tried to resist and screamed, but it was useless. Someone punched him, and finally, they threw him out of the room. They even threw the passbooks after him. As a reader, it felt strangely satisfying. As he sat there, his present self loomed over that memory. He began cursing his past self. Sitting there, he started calculating how many days he could live on that money. And in frustration, he made a terrible decision. He decided to sell the house for more money. But as the idea settled, tears filled his eyes. He knew it wouldn't last long either. Scene shifted to the present. He sat silently, assessing his life choices. Then, a chilling thought crept in. He began contemplating suicide. With that thought, he pulled out his phone, opened the calendar, and randomly selected a date. He started typing something. He wrote the word suicide on the 25th date, and just like that, the date was chosen to end it all. He threw his phone on the ground. He was frustrated as there was no internet that day. He started unpacking his PC from the box. He completed the PC setup successfully. He pressed the switch on button, and the system started its boot up sound. The system started to load. Guess it was searching for internet. But nothing was working. He sat silent, unable to do anything. Accepting his defeat, he laid on the floor. Then his eyes were caught by something weird. It was a spider near the lamp. He felt it creepy. But then his eyes widened in shock as he heard a voice. "What you gonna do about it?" He quickly got up to look. Who was that? His focus shifted to the wall, wondering if someone was speaking from the other side, but there was nothing. He creeped out as he found nothing and remained confused. Then suddenly, breaking the silence, his doorbell rang. It was the guard, and the protagonist was unsure why he came. He opened the door slowly, asking him why he came there. Looking at this kid, the guard reminded him about their meeting at the office earlier. While he was talking, the protagonist's focus shifted to his nose plug, used for the nosebleed issue. The protagonist asked him, "What about the meeting? Is it really important?" The guard explained that it wasn't important and suggested he not sign any document as they had some dispute with the construction company. As uninterested as he was, he declared that he would not do any such thing. The guard thanked him for agreeing so easily. The protagonist told him to go away. But before going, the guard offered him orange juice. The protagonist was confused. Why was he doing this? And what happened to his hand? But to shoo him away, he accepted it, and the guard went on his way. Looking at him going away, the protagonist felt something weird about him. He started examining that juice bottle. In that moment, he heard something. It was the girl living next door, talking on the phone about some audition. It felt like she was trying to assure her mother that this time she would be successful in the audition. Her mom suspected if she was doing something dirty in the industry, but she assured her and hung up the call. And in that moment, her eyes fell on the protagonist. The protagonist was looking at her with his dead expression that would creep out anyone. And obviously, she ignored eye contact and went on her way. While on her way, she was whispering about how she was starving nowadays due to failures. And then she stopped. She started having a nosebleed, similar to the truck driver and the guard. On the other side, the protagonist was blushing, imagining her beauty. And then shaking off his thoughts, he closed the door. A memory resurfaced. He was thinking about how life might have been different if he had offered his hand. Till now, it's unsure what memories he had. Those thoughts literally brought tears to his eyes. He was lying in his room under complete darkness. His mind was in deep thoughts because all he had were thoughts only. But then he screamed that he didn't want to think about his past and all those memories. To divert his mind, he started watching TV. As it was getting so boring, footsteps echoed. This made his mind alert. He woke up and understood that it was the girl who lived next door. He was thinking about her. Why does she come so late like this? Then he was listening to her footsteps from her room. His eyes were following wherever her footsteps were echoing. Then she started whispering about her failures and starvation she was going through, and the protagonist could hear her words. He murmured to himself about how thin these walls were. Then he decided something mischievous. He got up and kept his ear on the wall to hear more from her side. He was listening to walking sounds only. But then he heard something different. It was the meowing of a cat. He heard her talking with her cat about food. And now he knew the girl also had a cat in her house. But then he blushed as she took her cat to get a shower with her. And that shocked him, and he got away from the wall. He again started watching a TV show. But inside his mind, the image of the neighbor girl was appearing. And then he suddenly imagined taking a shower. As she was saying a while ago, he blushed hard, and it was visible on his face. Then he started shaking his head to wipe out all the incoming weird thoughts. But he couldn't control it, and thought about how much hope that girl had. All these thoughts made him think that this place was really good. But then his surroundings started to shake. It was due to the loud noise coming from the upper floor. He looked up, and that noise was increasing, shaking his lamp. His frustration was clear, and he started cursing. We see it was noise from the guitar. It was the girl living on the upper floor playing guitar so loud. She was totally into the music, not caring about others' peace. But it took all peace from the protagonist's day. And again, he started thinking, this place was the worst ever. Music changed his thoughts in less than a second. It had been a week since he moved here. He was feeling down because all he had eaten for days was junk food. But he didn't care anymore. He had lost all interest in living. He was completely focused on his PC, oblivious to the outside world. He was playing his all-time favorite online game with other players. He noticed a character who had been sitting still for 5 days straight, and another one had been standing frozen for nearly a week. He smirked, thinking they might have had a stroke while playing the game. Then, suddenly, one of those characters moved. He assumed it might be a random macro or bot, but then he noticed something unsettling. The girl started chatting, saying she had nosebleeds and heard voices inside her head every day. She went on to say the voices were telling her to kill her mom and dad. While other players ignored her, she calmly typed that she planned to kill them while they slept. When others finally paid attention, she began typing random gibberish. Everyone assumed she was mentally unstable. Watching this unfold, the protagonist felt genuinely disturbed. Then, as if summoned by his stress, the girl from the upper floor began her loud guitar playing again. Frustrated, he got up to finally do something about it. He started dialing the security office to complain about her, but his plan failed. No one answered the call. The scene shifted to the terrace, where the door was closed tight. A guy stood there, trying to access the rooftop. But to his disappointment, it was locked. With no other choice, he began smoking right there. Then a voice snapped, "Excuse me, this is a non-smoking building." He turned his head, startled by the interruption. It was a girl from the building. She looked frustrated and sharp-tongued. She started scolding him, saying she'd finally caught the person who smoked here every day, calling him a mobster. He defended himself, saying it was his first time and he wasn't a mobster. When she asked who he was, he gave a half-hearted answer that he was just a good fella. She found that answer painfully lame. She scolded him again, telling him to use the terrace instead of the corridor. Fed up, the guy pointed out that the terrace door was locked. To confirm, she checked the lock herself and asked who had locked it. He admitted he didn't know and asked what she was doing up there anyway. She stayed silent, refusing to answer. Then he noticed something in her hand, a lighter for cigarettes. He looked at her with suspicion, now understanding her intent. Turning the tables, he began scolding her for smoking at such a young age. She ran away, snapping at him to mind his own business. Inside the protagonist's room, words echoed eerily. Hyun-cha, you pathetic fool. What did you expect? No one will protect you. He was sleeping in darkness. It seemed like he was hearing these words in his nightmare. Then, suddenly, he woke up, gasping. To check the time, he grabbed his phone. His eyes caught a message. A food delivery had been successfully completed at his door. He rushed to get it, but was disappointed. The box was already opened. He looked outside, suspecting someone had stolen it. Then he noticed his food was scattered on the floor, leading toward the next door. He stood frozen. Had the neighbor girl really stolen his food? He went to check and was struck by horror. There were bloodstains near the entrance to her door. He turned around. Blood was trailing through the corridor where his food lay. He remembered her talking about nosebleeds before. But this was far too much to be just a nosebleed. He tried peeking inside her room and was stunned. Everything inside was in chaos, and someone was eating loudly and ferociously. He was angry. His ramen was clearly being devoured. But then he noticed something even more disturbing. On the floor lay a cat's neck belt, drenched in blood. Terror gripped him. He realized the cat next door might have been eaten. To make matters worse, a dark, creepy hand reached into the light. Something, or someone, was trying to grab the bloody collar. He was too shocked to move. He tried backing away slowly, but like in every horror movie, he stepped on a ramen packet. The crackling sound gave him away. Then came a chilling voice from the room.
Some bit to eat.
Desperate to survive, he bolted. He ran inside his room and slammed the door shut with all his strength. He was beyond shocked. What he had just seen outside was beyond explanation. In sheer terror, he did what anyone his age would do. He hid under the bed. His eyes stayed fixed on the door as strange noises echoed from outside. And then, his soul nearly left his body. Someone rang the doorbell. Scene shifted to outside of the building. In the darkness of the night, a person was walking there. Suddenly, his call got disconnected. He tried to call again on the same number, but from the other side, he just heard a loud scream and instinctively pulled the phone away from his ear. In confusion, he stared at the phone, but then turned his head behind as he heard something. But when he looked behind him, it was all darkness. Nothing was there. But suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of him. He noticed it and tried to turn his head. But as soon as he fully turned, his eyes went dark and pure terror spread across his face. Within a moment, his phone slipped from his hand and hit the ground. And in the next second, his body collapsed, soaked in blood. Without even a pause, his body vanished. The only things left on the ground were his blood, phone, and bag. He had completely disappeared. Scene shifted to the protagonist's room. He was still hiding under the bed, paralyzed by shock. He remembered the hand he'd seen earlier, dark, grotesque, and inhuman. His eyes widened as he realized it was a monster. He immediately covered his mouth to silence his breathing. Someone outside was still ringing his doorbell. He was stunned. How could a monster ring a doorbell? But then he heard something. Hello? Are you there? The voice continued. My cat is missing, and my room is a mess. Excuse me. Please help me. At this moment, the protagonist was terrified. The monster could talk, but the voice, it sounded different from what he had heard in the girl's room. For a moment, he thought he might be losing his mind, stuck in this dark room for too long. And with that, he slowly crawled out from under the bed. He looked at the door camera screen. He was completely shocked. What he saw outside wasn't a monster, but the neighbor girl, standing there in tears. He felt horrible. Was he starting to break down mentally? With trembling hands, he pressed the mic button to reply to her. The girl finally noticed someone was inside. The protagonist asked her why she came to him. She answered, begging him to help her. The protagonist was confused. Help you how? He asked, and she replied, call the police. His eyes widened when the girl said there was blood and empty ramen bags outside. Still shaken, the protagonist asked, don't you have a phone? She answered that she didn't, and again pleaded with him to call the police. The protagonist told her to call the security office for help because he couldn't assist. Hearing that, the girl went silent. With suspicion growing, the protagonist hesitantly asked her to show her arm. The girl was confused, like she hadn't heard him. But he repeated himself. Show me your arm. This time, even though she clearly heard him, she remained completely silent. And then suddenly, her head tilted unnaturally as she whispered in a creepy voice.
Open the door.
A chill ran through his spine. Her face started to distort, changing into something inhuman. Blood began dripping from her mouth as she muttered,
I'm starving to death.
The voice was now identical to what he had heard in her room. Terrified, the protagonist yanked himself back from the screen. Then suddenly, guitar music echoed from the upper floor. He began sweating. He knew it was the girl from upstairs playing. He turned his head back toward the screen. His eyes went wide in horror. The girl on the screen, now fully a monster, burst into maniacal laughter, and in the very next moment vanished. He could feel it. She was running, through the corridor, up the stairs. He shouted, "Stop the music now!" He knew the girl upstairs was unknowingly summoning death. Panicking, he looked around and saw a mop. Without thinking, he grabbed it and broke off the mopping head, turning it into a crude weapon. He kicked the door open and stepped outside. Heart pounding, he scanned the corridor. No one was there, but blood stained the floor. He was certain. The monster went up the stairs. Still shaking, he screamed that he'd destroy the monster to save the girl. Suddenly, he heard footsteps coming from the stairwell. His hands trembled uncontrollably. The steps grew louder, closer. Sweat dripped from his face. He was so terrified, it felt like he could die from a heart attack alone. Someone, something, was coming. Was it the monster? Was it someone else? Or something worse? Who knows? Please stay tuned for the next part to find out. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss it. We'll keep bringing you more spine-chilling content. Thank you. Bye.